going just in case. Okay, there we go. So welcome, an official welcome to everybody. I'm delighted to see so many faces that I know and new people too. And thank you for being here, and delighted to have Jamie Smart and Emma McDevitt with us. They're here because we're going to hear from them a lot more, but I just wanted to quickly introduce them officially, and then perhaps not so officially. I might have a couple of things to share about them that they don't know yet. So we'll see how that goes. So for those of you who don't know Jamie, and I imagine there's probably nobody in the room that doesn't, but just in case, and we don't know where these recordings end up. So Jamie is a Sunday Times best-selling author, trainer and executive coach with over 20 years of experience. He's a master of transformation and has a proven track record of helping his clients make extraordinary changes and creating outstanding results. So that's what who Jamie is officially. And Emma McDevitt is a gifted coach, trainer and change worker who's passionate about helping people wake up to their unique gifts and express them more and more fully in the world. So Emma, I have known less time than I've known Jamie. Jamie, I joined his email list, his mailing list, back in 2008 or 2009 when he was running a company called Salad. And I ended up meeting him in person. There's a long story, and I'm going to keep it really brief. In 2010, when I popped over to London, I live in Spain, by the way, just in case that doesn't make sense to you. So I flew over to London to go to one of his very first live events, where he'd started sharing the 3 principles. It was covert, I would say. It wasn't completely overt. I got duped into going in a way, but I'm so grateful that he snuck me over, got me to go over, and because something just resonated so deeply with me in what Jamie was sharing. So that was the first time I met Jamie, and he won't remember this, but it was very memorable to me because I bumped into him.
I vividly remember, actually.
Do you? Really? I bumped into him. I stayed at the Venue Hotel. I don't think we've ever spoken about this. And I bumped into him in the corridor as I was going to breakfast and he was going to breakfast. And I was like, it's Jamie Smart, he's like that man that's going to be on the stage that I've never met before. And he very kindly invited me for breakfast. Little did he know how nervous I was. I could hardly eat anything. But I sat down to have breakfast with Jamie before he went on the stage that morning. So that was my first sort of in-person meeting with Jamie. And I have watched his journey over the years from afar, and really delighted that last year he came to a retreat that I organised here in Spain with Emma. And I have to admit as well, I was a bit nervous about that, to be honest, because he was this person that I had admired from afar, and now he's going to come and sit in a room and be a participant with us in the group, And I had no idea what to expect, because I'd never been in a room with Jamie as co-participants, if you like. But it was a beautiful experience, and Emma was there. It's the first time I'd met Emma in person. Beautiful soul, and their sharings just really touched me deeply in who they were being in the room. They were truly participants, and I know they're great leaders, and we're having them as leaders here in Spain in May. Wonderful leaders, but also amazing participants as well. So I was really touched by that, and something really sparked for me in wanting to bring them to Spain. And I was delighted when Jamie asked me if I would organise something for them to come and do in Spain, which we're doing in May next month. And the topic that they have chosen is uncovering your true identity. And I know it's something, awakening your deepest gifts is the subtitle, the sort of the tagline. And that's what we want to talk about today. And we're running this as an open Q&A session. Really, really want this to be interactive. So I'm inviting you to type your questions into the chat. If you have questions you want to ask, feel free to raise your digital hands, and you can come and talk to Amy and Emma and Jamie. And yeah, so I'm going to kick us off, starter for 10 in a way, just to really take it back to basics in a way, uncovering your true identity. I'd love, and I'm throwing it out to Jamie or Emma, I'd love for one of you to let everybody know, let us know, what does that even mean? What does that even mean, uncovering your true identity?
Well, it's a great starter question, and it's really interesting because Emma McDevitt and I were talking about this morning, and McDevitt said so beautifully why actually uncovering your true identity and awakening your deepest gifts, they sound like two things, but it's actually one thing. They're two sides of the same coin. And so I thought it might just be good to start by hearing from you, McDevitt. Like, what is it that you're seeing kind of even more deeply about that's fresh and new for you today?
Trying to feel my way back into what I said to you. It seems to me that we're looking at one thing. So what I've, funnily enough, as I've followed my calling, like my sense of where I am to go next, where it's led me to so far is the realization that what my work's about and what I most want for the people that I'm in contact with and that we orient towards is to both connect more and more deeply, come more and more deeply into alignment with our spiritual nature, the universal creative life force energy that each one of us is, and as part of the same thing, to come more and more deeply into alignment with each of our unique expression of that, our that kind of glorious essential beingness that each of us can uniquely bring, the qualities of being, the gifts, the curiosities, the callings that that are our unique fractal or refraction of that universal energy, and exist in layers way deeper than our personalities. But what I'm seeing more and more clearly, like every day, in all the work I do, is that for each one of us to come into alignment with that essential nature, with those two aspects of that one essential nature, and to express it more fully into the world, there's a way in which it turns out that's all any of us have ever been looking for all along. And it's also all the world needs. And that's what's very alive for me today. That's what I was talking to Jamie about.
I love the way you put that. And two things jumped out to me as I listened to you, and the things that I'd love everyone here to really kind of connect with. The first is that Marianne Williamson quote that everyone knows. And there's a line in it where she says, it's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And I really heard that in what you said, that this true identity, this unique expression, this aliveness is there in all of it. Like if you've got a pulse, it's there in you. And whether you believe it or not, whether you know it or not, whether you're present to it or not, whether you've spent your whole life doubting it or not, it's there. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And the other, go on, McDevitt.
I was just going to say, for some reason, what I've got going through my head is a little part of a Sid Banks recording where he's just saying, "You are it, you are it." Sorry, you say the other thing.
Yeah, I love what you were just saying. The other thing was a quote by Harold Thurman, who said, don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, then go do that. Because what the world needs is more people who have come alive. And I meet lots of people who have been, deeply impacted by the principles, and like their life has changed as a result of getting a glimpse of who they really are. And then they're, wanting to share it with others or do their own thing or whatever it might be. And it seems to me, well, sort of like I said at the top, and like Emma was saying, there's a way in which the truth of who you are and the gifts you're here to give to the world, to bring to the world, they're two sides of the same coin. They're two flavors of the same thing. They're two facets of the same thing. And so if you've been, well, let me just by a show of hands, who's been touched by in some way through exploring this understanding? Either you've had insights or it's done something for you. Okay, so I guarantee if you've been touched by it in any way, that means that you have an innate capacity for insight. You have an innate capacity for realization, and that innate capacity is an expression of your true nature, of your beingness. And the gifts you're here to give are also an expression of that. They're like, it's all one thing. Like we talk about, oh yeah, your capacity for insight or your capacity for resilience or what you're here to share or whatever. It's actually one thing. It's one thing. And the thing that strikes me as really cool about that is that one thing has everything you need within it. It's not like, oh yeah, I've seen the principles, now I need some extra stuff on how to find my gift or what. It's like, no, it's one thing. Like if you've got any of it, if you've had an insight, you've got it by the tail, right? Like, or it's got you by the tail. Like it's one thing is what's hitting me right now.
Eric, I see your hand up. Would you like to?
Yeah. Can I have some question?
Hi, Eric.
Hey, Jim. Yeah. So I'm really impressed by hearing the three principles at first, and also I read your book Clarity, and I really like what you're talking about, and especially the title of this discovering yourself and try to be yourself. So I feel I really feel it, but for example, for myself, after I feel it, I don't know how to really practice it. So for me, maybe you can see my guitar behind. I like the music. I really like it, playing it. But right now my job is an engineer. So I'm also it's the dilemma is like I think I music and I love playing it, but I don't. At least so far, I haven't been able to live just playing music. So that's why I becoming an engineer, and I have a family. I have 2 kids I need to how to say support, so that I don't dare to just say, so I quit everything, I just do what I really love, which is music.
What age are your kids, Eric?
7 and 1.
Wow,
One is just born 1 year ago.
amazing. Well, first thing I'll say is they're really lucky to be growing up in a home where their dad knows this stuff. Like that's good news for them, and probably good news for you in terms of your enjoyment of them, right? So that's the first thing. Second thing is, what kind of engineer are you?
As a materials engineer, so we study material, physics.
Got it. So I imagine that as a material engineer, you need a pretty good grounding in chemistry and physics. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Now, if I was to say to you, how can I practice physics? You would probably say, well, you can't really practice physics. Physics is up and running. You can experiment with applications of physics. You can experiment with applications of chemistry, but physics just is. Chemistry just is. It's up and running. It's not changing anytime soon. The rules don't get revised on a quarterly basis. It's up and running. Well, it's the same with the principles. There are all kinds of different applications of this understanding, and there's a way in which the many different aspects of the human experience are all examples of the principles in action. But the principles are up and running, like physics and chemistry are up and running. Now, how is this relevant? Well, speaking to you as an engineer, if you were working alongside another engineer, and this is a silly example, but give me some poetic license. If you were working alongside another engineer and you discovered that your fellow engineer had skipped all the classes about physics and chemistry, we can predict that they wouldn't be a very effective engineer. Their ability to apply that understanding would be lacking. Just like if we were talking to an electrician who didn't really understand electricity, the chances of them getting electrocuted or electrocuting you while rewiring the house would be high, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my own experience has been that every increase in your embodied understanding of these principles leads to an increase in your I don't want to oversell this, but an increase in the fundamentals of the human experience. So things like love. I remember when I have 2 daughters, they're 20 and 24 now. When they were born, I didn't know about this understanding, right? My eldest was born 10 years before I found out about it. My youngest was born 6 years before I found out about it. And my experience of being a dad before I had the principles to after it was like night and day. Very, very different experience. And so I was a very happy customer. So I've spent the last 15 years just deepening my understanding, speaking to you as an engineer, deepening my understanding of physics and chemistry, because I can see all the ways that plays out for me. Now, in terms of your decision to be an engineer and support your kids versus going all in on making music, that may be, being a responsible dad, or it may be about timing, or it may be about a judgment call. I don't know. But what I do know is that you have gifts you're here to bring. And you have a true self within. And it's funny, Eric. One of the things we're looking forward to about the retreat is that, this is going to sound terrible, but I'm going to say it anyway. Our focus is on the physics and chemistry of it and not on the engineering of it, because we know that when you take 4 days and just look in the direction of the truth of who you are, the truth of your gifts, the truth of what you've got going for you, it has to bring beauty and richness and transformation into your life. So that's my take on it. I'd love to hand over to McDevitt, but feel free to, you've listened to me banging on for 5 minutes. What are you hearing in what I'm saying, Eric?
Yeah, what I feel is like, I feel like I really love doing music and playing guitar and things like that. But, and I'm not, on the other hand, I'm not really, of course, I enjoy some of the engineer part of my work and job, but it is so draining of my energy rather than the energy I can gain from to do with music. But in reality is that I don't dare to just quit my engineer job and devote the whole myself into music, even though I think I'm pretty sure if I'm going to choose these two, and one is the engineer that drains my energy and one is music, I would choose music for no doubts. But even though I know that, I still hesitate to do that.
I'm going to ask you one question, then I'm going to hand over to McDevitt.
Mm.
Because what I heard you say is, I don't dare to do it. I still hesitate. What are you afraid would happen if you did?
That I don't have income and the family will have no support, and I cannot raise my family and my family that I love.
Well, I got to tell you, that's entirely possible. The music business, as I understand it, is a business like so many others. So I don't want to be going, Eric, you can do it, go for it. I mean, there are many things that are possible. And my experience is the only guarantee we have is we're going to have a human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's my guess, Eric. If you're going to make a shift in the direction of making your work that passion for music, that's going to require using wisdom and intuition to be your guide in the journey. It's not going to be I'll just go for it, man. It's going to be nuanced and done with care and reflection. But thanks, Eric. I'm going to hand over to McDevitt. McDevitt, you've always got an interesting perspective on these things.
Always. Hi, Eric.
Right.
So one thing I want to say is, which kind of relates to the retreat, is that one of the beautiful things about spending 4 days essentially looking in the direction of the formless and coming into alignment with our true nature, is that we get the experience of the machinery of our perceptual equipment that's creating what looks like reality. We get the experience of that machinery slowing down or stopping or taking a break for a while. And over 4 days, that can happen very deeply. And we get the experience of being able to kind of step off the world, like step out of the reality we've been experiencing until now. And that's always available when we look in the direction of the principles. It's available potentially at any time. And what we often find then is that we have the insights that we need rather than the ones we've been looking for. And we find answers in places we'd never even have thought to look. And so my sense at the minute, for what it's worth, Eric, is that while a situation looks like it's binary, like there's this choice or there's that choice, the chances are there are a host of other perspectives available that aren't visible right now. So I think that's very much worth bearing in mind. And the other thing I just wanted to mention, again, which isn't an answer for you, but it's what I've got right now, is that I had it a minute ago. In my experience, that which already knows which we are to become, that which guides us a breadcrumb at a time. And we often think, in order to make any kind of change, I need to see the whole picture. I need to see where this is heading. I need to see what price I have to pay. I need to see what the implications are. But that guidance, it doesn't work like that because it wants us to stay close to life. Like, we are designed to be guided in real time by intuition. And so very often what I find, and do myself, of course, is that often we're looking further ahead for the answer when actually the very next breadcrumb is right under our nose, but we're not taking it because it doesn't look practical, important enough, significant enough, that kind of thing. And so to me, the rewards available in aligning to that deeper guidance they're uncovered a step at a time. It's almost like the point is that we don't know where it's going to lead us.
Yeah, I love what you said, McDevitt. There's a quote that is very alive for me at the moment by Steve Jobs. He said, above all, have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become.
Mm.
And I don't think he was saying, yeah, if you've got a dream, just go, you only live once and make crazy moves. Like, I don't think he's saying that. I think what he's saying is, Eric, you have a heart's desire, and that's around music, and that's what's available to you at the moment. And that desire has been placed in your heart as a guide. And you're currently working as an engineer, and that feels not quite right? Like there's some tension there. And that's valuable information as well. And then to Emma's point, you will be given breadcrumbs that move you in the direction of your heart's desire. Now, here's the interesting thing. When I was my early 30s, my heart's desire was to be an NLP trainer. That was like, I couldn't think of anything more wonderful. And now, like, that's a career I left behind a long time ago because I got new possibilities, new loves, new inspiration given to me. But it was enough to take me a certain step of the journey. And so one of the things we're going to be doing in the retreat is, well, actually, there's something else that Emma was just saying about giving the mental machinery time to slow down so that something more profound can come through. I've just, like yesterday and the day before, I was doing a 2-day intensive with one of my one-to-one coaching clients. And this is a person who's been exploring the principles probably for 9 or 10 years at this point, so pretty experienced with this understanding. But he was absolutely gobsmacked at the impact of just slowing down long enough to find out what's already there within you, right? Like, and he had a profoundly transformative experience. And I love that. I love that I get to facilitate that. But what I've got going for me as a coach, as a teacher, as a retreat leader, it's the same thing that Emma has going for her, which is we have absolute faith in the wisdom and intelligence and beauty that resides at the heart of our clients' being and the heart of our own being. Like there's a bigger picture than any of our ideas about what's possible that's being played out. There, you know, the wisdom and intelligence of life is so much bigger, has so much more foresight, has so much more sense of the scale and scope of what's possible for you, for the magnificent oneness that you are, that it just dwarfs what the intellect is capable of. Now, McDevitt and I, we've got a bunch of skills as well that help us in our jobs as, you know, coaches and change workers and group leaders and retreat leaders. And just like if you're, I don't know, building a bridge, you're going to be relying on gravity and, you know, the strength of various materials and that sort of thing to do a bunch of the work for you. It's the same with us. Like we have a bunch of stuff that we do, but what we're relying on is what every single person here already has going for them.
Can I add something, Jamie?
Please.
It's what you're saying's brought up for me. Well, first of all, it brought up the quote that inherent in every desire is the mechanics for its fulfillment. That looks deeply true to me.
Mm-hmm.
The other point I wanted to make off of what you said is that by definition, our calling, what we're being called into that we haven't yet responded to, is going to exist beyond the boundaries of our current reality. So often it's going to show up like one of those impossible choices, one of those binaries. It's going to look like there's a reason it's impossible because there's a reason we haven't followed that calling. Like it, by definition, it exists beyond our current model of the world. And so the way through is always going to involve an updated perceptual model. And to me, although there's all these things we may, you know, love the idea of doing or experiencing or achieving, to me, at heart, that's what it's all about, is us expanding our experience of life and ourselves in line with the truth of who we already are and who we always are. Like that looks to me like the truest game, if you like. And so obstacles aren't a problem. Obstacles are indicators that we're at the edge of our current perceptual experience. And I know it really doesn't look like that way, but it always is.
It's such a good point, like, because despite the fact of this being what we do and us being fluent in what you were just saying, McDevitt, when I'm faced with a heart's desire that calls me beyond the constraints of what I currently think is possible, my typical response is, well, that's not going to fucking work, is it? Like, because I know how the world works, and that thing that I most deeply want, well, that's just not possible within the boundaries of how I know the world to work. But inevitably, is interesting. The reason that Steve Jobs quote comes to mind, he says, above all, have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. See, our conditioning, our personality, our ego, it only knows about the past. It only knows about our beliefs of what is and isn't possible. The ego knows nothing of who you truly are. It knows nothing of the future that your heart desires. It knows nothing of what's possible for you. But it pretends that it does, right? It tells you that it does. And from my perspective, part of the journey of awakening to the truth of your being and uncovering your unique gifts and bringing them to the world is a willingness to believe, to have, there's this line at the beginning of Sydney Banks' book, The Missing Link. He says, there are those in this world who believe miracles do not happen. I can assure such skeptics that they do. With hope and faith as beacons, anything can happen. And kind of, as Emma said, by definition, your heart's desire is designed to throw you up against the constraints of what you believe is possible. Because if it didn't, you'd already be doing it, right? If it wasn't for your beliefs about what's possible, Eric, you'd already be working as a musician, right? Now, I'm not saying you should do that. I'm not saying, yeah, just overcome your limiting beliefs and then you'll be doing it. I'm saying that by definition, your heart's desire orients you through and beyond the boundaries that have been in place until now. And what we found is that there's nothing quite like getting into a context where we're looking in the direction of that truth and creating the space to open up the possibilities for what your heart desires and where you want to go with it.
Can I pick up again, Jamie?
Please.
When you were talking about what we believe is possible, I just wanted to include in that includes what we believe is reasonable, allowed, what we deserve, how fulfilled we believe it's okay to be. We have all sorts of conditioning. That functions to, just stop us being our most fully, joyfully expressed being in the world. And so something I wanted to share that I know so deeply is true, which I've seen the truth of for a long time, but actually, Sheila, it was Ian who said it most beautifully at that retreat last year, which is when we act in alignment, it benefits the whole. Like when we act in alignment with our deepest beingness, our genuine desires, our qualities and gifts and enthusiasms and curiosities, that serves life. And so often we're met with a story that it's impractical or it's selfish or it's this thing or it's that thing. But it's just been demonstrated to me over and over again that when we act in alignment, it benefits the whole.
Yeah, thanks, McDevitt. Is that good for now, Eric?
Yeah, but I have just a question about this intuition you're talking about.
Yeah.
Isn't that somehow quite similar to, or some similarity with the ego, with one's ego? That I know what to do. I know what is supposed to, happen.
Yeah. So my assertion is that if Jobs had meant ego or personality, he would have said that. I'm going to draw a very sharp distinction with the messages of our ego, our conditioning, our personality, which tends to be practiced and habitual and repetitive. And I want to contrast that with the voice of wisdom, of intuition, of insight, which tends to be quiet, tends to be a surprise sometimes, tends to be, it often has the character of, it wasn't me that came up with it. It's from beyond. There you go. And here's the other thing with intuition. It doesn't tend to rattle around in our heads going, is this ego or is this intuition? Is this ego? Or it doesn't tend to rattle. It tends to be just a,
And it can be very uplifting, I found out.
It can be, depends on the topic. Sometimes I'll have just finished chewing someone out or something like that, and I'll be walking away feeling very pleased with myself at how effective I have spotted a dickhead and told them that they are one, and I'll be walking away feeling pleased with myself, and then it'll suddenly occur to me, hey, Jamie, you were the dickhead in that situation. I'm like, oh, now I've got to go and apologize. No. So that's not necessarily uplifting, but it has the character of, it feels like truth. It doesn't feel like, I know I'm right, I know I'm right, I know I'm right. It's more a kind of knowing of like, oh yeah, that's true. That's right. So it's one of the things we'll be doing on the retreat, is just looking at how do you discern between those intuitive nudges that take you in the direction that your heart is pointing, which is about creating what you want, versus the nagging of conditioning, which just gets you going around the same track again and again and again. We'll be exploring that. Thanks, Eric.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So that was a great first question, Sheila. We got time for a second question?
Yeah, but we haven't got one at the moment. If you want one from me,
It's up
by all
to
means.
you, or McDevitt,
Anybody else out there? Anybody else out there want to ask a question?
Yeah, if you have questions for us about just this whole domain of awakening to the truth of your being, of uncovering your unique gifts, just type it into the chat. We got about 15 minutes left, so just type it into the chat. Or
Okay, I just have a short following question. What Emma was saying, I think it was very beautiful description about saying attending this retreat, and then we can slow down this reality mechanical. Sorry, I forgot your beautiful description, but this thing. But I think that's a very good thing. But then after this retreat, we go back to our normal life, busy life with everything. Then what will happen is everything changed, or comes back.
Great question.
I love that you asked it, Eric.
Yeah.
One of the things when Jamie and I first sat down to talk about what we'd love for this retreat, I raised the very same thing, Eric, because I said that there's a way in which going on a retreat can be the most beautiful, almost getting a refill at the spiritual filling station, and it can be this beautiful like a spa break for the mind, like a break from your habitual thinking. And there's no doubt, regardless, that as anyone here I'm sure has experienced when they've been on retreats, is that it in the quietening down, in the stopping of the world, we often have insights that stay with us, that we take away a fresh orientation to ourselves or our challenges and so on. And I recognize that thing that you describe, Eric, of how kind of inexorable it can seem that the machinery starts up again, and the old priorities seem to come back into play. And so the question I had raised when the thing I'd raised when Jamie and I were talking about it is, how can we have people have an experience of that beingness and that guidance system that that is so, and spend enough time in the knowing of that it begins to become that it's so deeply seen that it becomes a newly viable way of navigating the world. It becomes kind of not an option to go back to kind of buy into the old way of experiencing the world. And that's something that's really close to my heart and really important to me. Jamie and I are doing our second year of a program around this same theme about bringing your unique expression to life. And one of the most rewarding things was people feeding back about, one of the most rewarding things for me personally was people feeding back about how they discovered a new way of navigating and something kind of eternally trustworthy to steer by, that felt unfamiliar at first and almost felt like it, like, can you really trust that to bear your weight? But then coming into the trust and experience of it to the degree that the old way of navigating felt was no longer acceptable. I don't know if I'm explaining this very well, Jamie, so feel free to.
I think you're explaining it really well, and I've got some thoughts on it. And actually, it syncs with something that Gregory asked.
I have got one more thing as well.
Oh, well, go ahead.
And then I'll stop. To me, there's a switch that occurs when alignment with what's deep within becomes, I can't believe I only just thought of this, it's my main steer. When alignment with what's within becomes your highest authority, it's like, I feel like life, all the discomfort and stuckness and struggles and resistance we experience, we can misread the cues, but I feel like essentially it's life asking us to finding a way to nudge us into alignment with the truth of our being. And so there's a way in which it's available in every moment. It's not somewhere we have to get to, it's available. Mm-hmm. And as we become familiar with that, and that becomes our kind of highest authority, then it makes less and less sense to let anything else take precedent. It becomes a compass, a steer, incredibly simplifying, because there's a binariness about it. And as you act in accordance with it, it kind of proves itself. It's the most, and where I've come to with it is, to me, it's the most practical thing in the world. It's the most practical way of experiencing life, of navigating.
Yeah, I think so. So I was going to respond to what you said with something Gregory wrote, and then I was hit as I was listening to you by a Joseph Campbell quote. Campbell said, the privilege of a lifetime is being who you are. And to me, that speaks to the alignment you were just speaking about. It's not saying, yeah, anyone, regardless of what's going on, just remember it's a privilege to be you. It's like, yeah, but I've got a broken back or whatever. Like, it's about that alignment. And that the revelation of the truth of your being is what allows you to experience the privilege of being who you are. So Gregory said, today I can best serve the world by being. As a physician, my whole life has been about doing, mostly ego-driven in hindsight. Well clocked, Gregory. And then Gregory says, clarity requires courage. Now here's how it looks to me. Insight doesn't require courage. Insight is built in. It can require courage to be willing to kind of slow down long enough to pull your attention away from the habit of routine and distraction and that sort of thing, to open to that insight and realization that resides at the heart of your being. The insight itself doesn't require courage. The other thing that I think probably does require courage is this, like, as we were saying earlier, your heart's desires have been placed within you for a reason, and you have gifts that life wants to be given. And you, like me and everyone else, has a bunch of conditioning, and almost by definition, that conditioning is going to stand against your heart's desires. It's going to be to some degree between you and your heart's desires, or hold you back, or whatever metaphor resonates for you. And to me, the courage comes back to that Sid Banks quote, with hope and faith as beacons, anything can happen. The courage is to trust what your heart knows rather than what your ego knows. And there's the metaphor that I haven't thought of this in ages and ages, but it's in my book Clarity, and I thought I'd read it. This is on page 64 if you're following along. It's called How to Recover from a Tailspin. In the early days of aviation, a pilot's worst enemy was the tailspin. Planes would unexpectedly go into a rapid spinning descent that typically ended in a fatal crash. If a plane went into a spin, the pilot's impulse, based on their training and experience of flying under normal conditions, was to pull back on the stick, but this only served to make a tailspin worse. For years, it was common knowledge that if a pilot was unlucky enough to find themselves in a tailspin, they were doomed. Now, in 1912, Lieutenant Wilfred Park went into an accidental tailspin at 700 feet while flying his biplane. Park pulled back on the stick, but the plane continued its terrifying death plunge. Then, with only seconds to live, Park did something utterly counterintuitive. He applied full right rudder. Onlookers watched in amazement as the doomed aircraft suddenly leveled out at 50 feet. Lieutenant Park had just discovered how to get out of a tailspin. Park's technique was revealed in 1912, but pilots continued to die because of their impulse to pull back on the stick if they went into a spin. They understood it intellectually, but they didn't have the insightful, embodied understanding that would save their lives until some years later, when basically the Air Force instituted training for this stuff. So what I'm going to suggest is, when we don't know a fact about reality, then we go to our conditioning. And we can be told that fact. I can say to you, you have a source of truth and insight and wisdom and intuition within you that is more than a match for everything life's going to bring your way. You can hear that, but until you know it in your heart, you'll continue to pull back on the stick, right? So to Gregory's question, clarity requires courage. My experience is it takes courage to have faith in what you know in your heart to be true, rather than the conditioning that you've spent years being schooled in. It takes courage to trust that truth, that wisdom, that intelligence, that intuition, that heart's desire, that calling, rather than default to what we have been taught to default to. And to Emma's point, as you trust that more and more, it becomes your central point of alignment. It becomes your go-to. And then courage is required less and less. But at first, it's like learning anything new. You're learning a way to operate that has been counterintuitive until now. And it's one of the reasons why we love the retreat format. It just gives us enough space to really allow you to kind of marinate in the truth of who you really are and what you've got going for you in a way that makes it, you know, reliable and persistent and dependable once you leave the retreat.
Do I have time to add one more brief thing about that?
I would love you to add one more brief thing about that.
Are you amusing yourself?
I am amused, but I can't take credit for it.
The thing I wanted to say was that like I kind of in my working life, I live for seeing people's like that innate beingness come fully, more and more fully into bloom. It's just so clear to me that our innate qualities of being and the latent gifts we carry, and this includes the qualities that we've dialed down or turned away from or learned aren't acceptable or whatever. That essential essence of each one of us and our heart's desires, like our calling, and what the world needs from us, those things are a perfect match. Like there's no accident in it. There's an intelligence in the design. So it's, when I say that alignment is kind of my highest authority, it's kind of trusting something that knows better than I do what I'm doing. It's those qualities, they're not, in a way, they're not personal. It's like they've been gifted to us for this lifetime. And it's not about whether we're good enough or worth it, or whether what we turn out to have inside of us is enough. Like it can't not be. It's a match made in heaven for our enthusiasms and what the world needs for us. And it's not so we can go out and do something grandiose and save the world. It's so that we can experience like our fullest belonging in it. And we'll do something brilliant at the same time. So that's what I wanted to say.
Thanks, McDevitt. I recognize we've just gone over the hour. I thought it might be worth mentioning that the retreat is in Albir in Spain. Sheila's put the link in the chat. It's from the 17th to the 20th of May. And we've got a number of people already enrolled on that. And we're just excited to meet and connect with and work with everyone who joins us. There's an early booking rate that expires on the 9th of April. So that's in like 5 days time. And that's basically for people who already know, you know, they definitely want to do this. So, so that's worth taking advantage of. And then the other thing is on the 21st of May, we're doing a 1-day deep dive, which is basically Emma and me doing one-to-one coaching with a group of 6 people. Now, there are 4 of those places are already taken on the deep dive, so there are 2 of those left. What we've found happens with those is people who are flying from halfway across the world to join us for the retreat typically decide, oh, well, I may as well do that as well. And we're really looking forward to that day. But if you wanted to get one of the deep dive day places, there are only 2 of those left. I think that's about it. Is there anything I haven't mentioned or that needs to be mentioned in relation to this, Emma or Sheila?
I think so.
The only thing I want to say is I can't believe that I get to. I'm pinching myself because this is. I'm going to listen to this again. This has blown me away. I don't know about other people's experience, but my experience of this hour has been really beautiful, beautiful feeling. And then the combo of you two, you just complement each other so well for me. I love it. I just love being around you and listening to what's coming through you. So I get to spend those 4 days and the 5th day, because I'm one of the participants of the deep dive day. I said I need to be there. I've got to be there on the deep dive day. So one of those places is mine, because I love it. I love hanging out with you two, and I'm really excited for me personally and for everybody that's coming along. Really, really, really looking forward to it. So.
Yeah, well, me too. And thank you again for organizing this, Sheila.
My pleasure.
Thanks
Absolutely.
all of you.
Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you especially to Eric for asking your wonderful questions that help spark the conversation. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
And I will send out the recording. Sorry, Eric. Didn't mean to
thank you all also very much for the beautiful replies.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Beautiful. So yeah, recording will be flying its way to you over the next 24 hours. So you can listen again if you want to. I know I will be. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Sheila.
Take care.
Bye for now. Bye.